7 o'clock, and I believe that's a roll call as necessary.
Yes. Pat Richards.
Yes.
Bob Fulkerson.
Yep.
Tyler Cobb.
Yes.
Patty Martinez.
Here.
Jack Foss.
Here.
And Jennifer's not here.
I might mention the agenda is part of the QR code identified. If anybody hasn't had a chance to go to the front entry, and you'll see a stand-up card, and you can do the QR. That'll give you the agenda for this evening. So at this point in time, we have a pledge of allegiance. You can stand. Agenda is the approval of minutes from the Somis MAC meeting held on February 22nd. Any changes or alterations?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. We are now on item number 5, agenda review. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the current consent agenda. Start with the information on the consent agenda. Israel, do we need?
You need a motion to accept 10 through 13.
Yeah, I realize that, but I'm not sure everyone has an opportunity to review the agenda. There might be some questions with regards to what's on the consent agenda.
So the consent agenda are your safety reports. If you had the chance to scan the QR code and you have the agenda, every one of the safety reports and the short write-up are there as part of your agenda packet, so you'll be able to see that. Has everyone pretty much had the agenda on their phone? Okay, see it? Okay. So then you have access to read those. If you want to read them right now, you can. Or
You don't have to read them specifically, but there's, let me just hit the titles. There's a California Highway Patrol Safety Report. That generally includes kind of like what accidents have taken place, truck scales, that kind of information. So there's the Ventura County Fire Department. They give the general information about what's happening. They gave us a good presentation at one of the previous meetings pertaining to the local fire that took place. We have an update from the Sheriff's Department. They're always interesting, talking about mailboxes that have broken into, burglaries, a variety of different things. I believe we have a representative from the Sheriff's Department. If you'd like to give us the latest. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Miguel Gonzalez, the Senior Deputy stationed out of Camarillo, who focuses on this area of the Somis, the unincorporated areas around Camarillo. So basically, the safety report for this month was to make sure that you guys are keeping updated with the information in regards to your tractor. We've been having an increase on stolen equipment, tractor equipment from farm properties, even including your utility vehicles like your quads, your off-road vehicles that you use sometimes out on farms. So make sure that you have the information in regards to serial numbers, the VIN number of the vehicle, which I think they call it a product identification number. That stuff is super important for us at the beginning to take the report, to make sure that we input the information as a stolen vehicle in the computer, or else there's no way of tracking the stolen vehicle. But it also helps us in the recovery part, meaning as soon as we recover the vehicle, we'll know exactly who to return it to. Because sometimes we find property, and without any identification, it sits in our property room and it never gets picked up. So If by chance you lose the serial numbers of the vehicles or the other equipment that you have, mark them. Engrave them with your ID number or something that pertains to you specifically. That way we can track that number in the computer. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Motion that we accept
Consent.
10 through 13.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any noes? Hear any? All right, we have the regular agenda, the item 14, update public works projects for March. Whoop.
Your public comments.
Jumped ahead, excuse me. Public comments. You have one speaker card. Not appearing on the agenda. Jim, you had some questions regarding low-income housing. That's not on the agenda, so you can go ahead and talk about it.
Any news regarding the property down here on Somis Road? If we know anything about, are they going to attempt, or has anything come forward about them attempting to build housing in there?
There's a whole agenda report on that, so we'll be updating that here.
All right.
Israel, I have a card.
Oh, you have the card?
Yeah.
Did everyone get a speaker card that wants to speak? Anyone? Anyone?
Jim, you also had a question about water supply. for
Yeah,
the housing.
so I had a question last time, but I didn't get an answer on, if they allow occupancy in there, I don't believe they have the water supply. And I know that they did the test to test the hydrant, but that's not a sustained, flow. That's just very brief. And so my question last time was, could I see the fire flows? And I would like to have some information on how they got them, because the line that serves that, one of the lines that serves that, we were told here, years ago, or Tyler, do you remember 2 years ago? 2 years ago, that they were gonna replace that water line. The state was gonna come through and improve it, and they were gonna replace it, and I'm pretty sure they said within 2 years, they would have it replaced, and there's nothing that's been done on it. So I know that the supply is compromised.
Any interest in having the water department give us an update?
In the February meeting, I brought that up, and I was waiting for answers.
We did, so there's been a changeover in Public Works, and so we're in the process of working through that. On two of the major items, we spent a lot of time, which you're gonna get reports on, both on the State 34 and then also the parcel that you talked about. On the water line, we inquired, but right now, that was not available as of this meeting date. But for the next agenda, I can have like Joe Pope or someone on the agenda for that.
Okay. So when that happened 2 years ago, I was told, I was invited to a meeting at the water department to talk about it. And I was told at that meeting that that line would be installed in 2 years.
We did inquire. Honestly, Jim, we were working on the secondary housing and on the State 34 and on the Balcon project. So I did bring it up. There was a changeover and so Joe said, let me get back to you. So what we're gonna do is for the next meeting, we'll get Joe out here and I'll get an answer for you on the water part.
Okay.
So I appreciate you bringing that up, though. And it is on our radar, so.
Any other questions on items that are not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward to Office of the County Supervisor, Jeff Burrell's comments. Israel.
Jeff is speaking or Supervisor Burrell is speaking right now at CLU. He's trying that ends at 7, so he's on his way over, trying to make it. Most of what he was going to speak about in terms of his comments are the agenda items. So there's a lot of good stuff that's coming up. I'd rather have him speak to that. We can move to the agenda items. But then also, he's been working really hard on hearing the concerns that you guys brought up at the last meeting, particularly on the secondary housing development. We have concrete answers to where we are right now with that. And then he was able to move up the traffic mitigation project on State 34. So that includes the 2 right turn lanes and the left turn lane, the traffic light, and the 2 bus stops. So that was going to be in 2025. It's now going to be fall of 2024, and we can go through that. So, and I'll let him speak to that. But also, anyway, the other thing is reflective dots. Falcon Canyon and Shelley here. So we've had a constituent that's been really concerned about that left, as you're turning right on Balcom if you're northbound, there is that, the left turn lane south. People have been crossing over the double yellow lines and into oncoming traffic. And obviously that creates a major concern. So supervisor worked closely with Caltrans to get that portion, the striping and reflective dots, out of a 2027 plan into, they completed it last week. So hopefully that'll at least, there's, I think there's pictures are in the agenda packet. It's like 6 or 7 stripes that were put diagonally, and then each one had a number of reflective dots. Hopefully that'll keep people from crossing over into oncoming traffic. So
I drive that every day. It's not the normal cars, it's trucks. And so the turn's not wide enough, just like Somis Road, connecting to 118, was
Yeah.
wide enough for 20 years, and they had to do something about it. It's the trucks trying to make that turn. You can't make that turn and stay in their lane.
and the 2027 project, the remainder part of that is the widening of that. And then so that, what we're able to do is at least, because there's so many projects going on, at least pull some of that out of there, so to keep it. The next thing would be putting channelizers to keep people from crossing over. The problem with the plastic, dividers that people put up there is that they knock them down, and it's very dangerous for crew members, and you can't really stop the traffic on that road all the time. So we'll be monitoring if we have to put the channelizers up to keep people from crossing there, then that is kind of plan B.
What problem that'll create is they can't make the turn, so they're gonna stop on 118.
Yeah, I know.
I already know that, but.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll see. This was just done last Friday, so let me know, provide feedback if you're seeing people are still crossing, or if they're, if it's deteriorated, that would be great, so.
Okay. Moving on, we have item number 9, council comments. Anything the council wants to?
I have one.
Okay, Bob?
Is Israel, how you coming to the railroad on cleaning up their stuff down there?
Okay, so if you noticed last year, they propped it up. That was their solution. And so it blew down right away. They're replacing the whole fence, but it's not going to be until fall of this year. I'm trying to get them to move it to summertime. So, and that would be for the complete, a new chain link fence being brought along that whole strip. So.
Where, we couldn't hear you, Bob. Where is it?
At Hagel lumber, so it's the railroad property. Any of you tried to work with the railroad, they know this will last how many years has been trying to get this done. We've been working with the regional government liaison for that. They cover 3 states. This one covers 3 states: California, Nevada, Arizona. We got her to agree to replace the fence. The crew went. They didn't replace it. They propped it up. We let them know right away that's not going to be good enough. She said the best I can do is get this into the fall of 2024. So I'm trying to get her. We're trying to go above her head and try to get it be done sooner. But I would like to just knock it down, which I've actually thought about doing. The problem with that is it provides access, and shortly after I was literally considering doing that, the accident occurred where someone crossed over on a truck on the railroad tracks. And so part of the problem is if the fence, and I think you had pointed this out, Bob, if the fence is completely down, it just provides access for people to get on the railroad property and can cause more hazard. So you guys are always more than welcome. If you get onto Union Pacific's website, it says they're all about community, and or if you want to get a petition going or something, you can do that. But it's really difficult, as you guys may know. at least we have communication going on with them, and we do have it plugged into a date, so.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. We'll move on to consent agenda.
No, we did that. We're on to 14.
Update on public works request for March. Somis, do we have information, Israel?
Okay, so if you go to your agenda, you'll see, how many of you actually have downloaded the app, the Public Works app, on your phone? If not, that's what this app here, there's a QR code. So what you can do is you can put on your phone the Public Works app. It allows you to report a number of concerns, everything from potholes, debris, water service. There's a lot of things on there that you can report. There was 15 for last month. There was 15 reports. 15 were closed out by Public Works, with one exception, and that would be on Balcon Road, where you're seeing the road that's now buckling and sliding. They did report that, so someone reported it to Public Works right away. As soon as a bump started to rise in the road, someone reported that. So that was very helpful. We got a crew out there right away. Right now, there's a geologist that's looking to assess how bad is the slide, and so that's currently where we are. But if you see anything, even if you see something, for instance, remember the food trucks that were kind of lining up and creating, I don't know if they're still creating a road hazard, but it's nice because once you actually give a report, you get feedback right away, okay? So they respond on your, what's called a ticket that you open, a SELA ticket that you've opened up, and they'll report back to you on that. So I encourage you, if you get a chance, I think out of the 15, let's see, 3 were, where's it at? We're at item 14.
Don't have a breakdown.
3 were for water service requests, 3 were for road maintenance, including and then the rest were for customer service, general requests. But graffitis, another thing that you can report on there, so. Although the graffiti on the fence, the railroad fence doesn't help.
Israel, if it happens to be not a public works issue or domain, do they forward the comment to the appropriate county department agency?
Yeah, so if it's a public work, so we also get a copy of it at our office. So I get a report and everything that's been sent in. And then generally they're under public works, but if it's forwarded, if it's a permit issue or something like that, then that's what we're doing. I still get that on my report. So,
Okay,
was that?
as long as it just doesn't circulate around.
No, and I get a report on all open, those that have not been closed out, plus the ones that are closed out, we also get the comments. So sometimes something may be closed out, but it wasn't completely solved. We'll go back in and we contact them on the issue, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Any questions on that item?
And also, before we leave that, you don't have to do it on your phone as well. You can go to the website, you can go to Ventura County website, you can go to Public Works, and immediately as Public Works website pops up, there's a button that says report a concern. So you can do that from your home computer, or you can also do it from the phone app.
And what do you have in your hand?
So this is for if you want the phone app, it tells you how to go about and put it on your phone.
Those will be at the,
And those are at the front, these are just extra ones, so.
okay. Very good. Okay, any other questions regarding 14? If not, we'll move to 15, update from Caltrans on project pavement rehabilitation and traffic mitigation on State Route 34, Somis Road.
So, what we did is we reported to Caltrans a lot of the concerns with the Somis Ranch on the mitigation. If you guys remember, Caltrans came out, they made a presentation on project number, the number is 35590. But if you remember, there wasn't a date for that project. There was for a lot of their other projects. A lot of the traffic mitigation, there wasn't any dates. And so, one of the major concerns, obviously, is the traffic hazards that you guys pointed out. So we went back to them and said, we really need to have this done as quickly as possible. It was gonna be done probably the fall of 2025. We were able to move that into the fall of this year. Really, you know, there's two entrances to the ranch. There's gonna be a right-hand turn lane at each of those, and then one left-hand turn lane coming in off of Somis Road as you're coming from Lewis Road. Plus the traffic light, and then also the 2 bus stops. So, we're happy to report that that's been moved out.
Is really the left turn lane going from Solis Road into that project, are they going to elongate that left
Yes.
turn?
Yes, it's gonna be widened.
They'll almost be at the intersection.
I know.
And they've already started moving folks occupying the ranch farm worker housing, is that correct?
I think at the end of April, yeah, so they're doing
The
it,
end of this,
yeah, end of this month.
Any other questions on that?
The pavement rehabilitation project for Highway 34?
Okay, that's part of the normal, you're talking about, this was the traffic, it's the same thing.
Well, they're supposed to rehabilitate all.
From, on the other side, from 34 all the way to 118.
From 118 all the way down to.
Yeah, I can bring that up, for this one, we were reporting on the traffic.
Well, the other one too is where they put the pipeline in to get the water to the farm worker housing is still all torn up. They did a really poor job. We brought that up to Caltrans too, and they were unaware of that.
Was that at the nut house you're talking
No,
about?
it's right here, where they like in front, from Hagel lumber down to the farm worker housing, where they tore it up, what, 3 years ago now? And it's, what, 24 inches wide all the way in the lane heading towards Camarillo. They just did a poor job.
That's pretty big potholes over there before you get to the strawberry stand, right at the Bell Ranch turnout or whatever you want to call it.
Where are the potholes at?
There's one right after Bell Ranch. Doesn't Caltrans have a rule that you have to pay both sides of? They did pave it. For 500 feet each way of the project, right? They did pave it.
They,
They do that?
they patched their trench, but then when it lowered, now it's an inch difference. And now it's falling apart where they did the patch work. They just did a bad patch. They didn't repave. They just patched the ditch.
Well, it's broken up all along that highway.
That was terrible.
Well, 118.
So are you,
Yeah, the slurry seal, they put it on, what, 10 years ago, is all.
so project 35170, pavement rehabilitation on the 118
Okay.
is is for winter 2024.
About 34.
And then on 34. Okay, 34 to spring 2024. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, that's the cold plain okay, that's the overlay pavement, upgrade existing guardrails, upgrade curbs to ADA standards, install rapid flashing beacons, crosswalk at Rice and North. So that part, implement complete street elements, begins construction spring of 2024. Yeah, several projects here, so let me just go through.
I believe they're gonna do that at night.
I do not know. We can have Caltrans, they had a meeting, they couldn't be here at this one, but I can get them at the next one. We don't, obviously with county projects, I have a better understanding of what the timeline with Caltrans is going off of what.
Is it possible to query Caltrans to get a specific timeline?
Yes. So why don't we do this, and we can answer all those other questions. For this one, we left last meeting specifically on the traffic mitigation.
Right.
So the answer to that one was, it was not scheduled until 2025, we moved that one up. On the other projects, which there's a number of those projects, if you want answers on those, I can have them here at the next meeting. And in the interim, I can also put something out on any specific questions that you want.
I think everybody appreciate that.
But the Vader project that we left with last time was the traffic mitigation for Somis Ranch. So,
Is there- I have a question. I saw on the agenda, the turn
traffic light, everything into fall of 2024, which includes, so communication is the light, the 2 right-hand turn lanes, the left-hand turn lane, and the 2 bus stops. So,
Has there been any conversation with AmCal about making sure that they don't occupy phase 2, which is almost done, before the light? Because that was a
other
condition.
than what was brought up at the last meeting, which they said they, you're talking about on the light, so we're moving the light up.
Apparent.
So the light's being moved up into,
A condition of their permit was they were not allowed to have occupancy in phase 2. They could build it, but they could not occupy it until the light was up and functional.
and I believe the timeline for phase 2 was asked to Mr. Pratt when he was here the last time. And he answered that the timeline for phase 2 is not changing. So with the light, we're bringing the light in as part of the same project. It doesn't make sense to separate those two.
But phase 2 is
The
almost done. They're ahead of schedule.
yes.
But I just want to make sure that someone's holding them accountable to not occupy it.
The issue on this one was he was asked, the timeline for phase 2 is not changing. What we did is lump the light and the 2 turn lanes, going right and left turn lane into the same project. Doesn't make sense to not do it all at the same time.
No, I get
But
that.
that,
I
but
don't.
it wasn't contingent, that
I'm
was,
not convinced that Caltrans, just because they moved it up on a computer, is gonna do it. And I think that they should not be able to occupy it until the light's done.
so the changing of the timeline of the lights and everything had anything to do with occupancy. So just because we're moving the timeline up, so phase,
I think we're talking about 2 different things. Their permit says they cannot occupy. If that light doesn't go in until 2029, they can't occupy phase 2. That was a condition of their permit, that they could not occupy phase 2 until the light was up.
but there was also a separate timeline for what phase 2, the date of phase 2, not tied to the light. So I can clarify that, but the time for phase 2 was set. What we did, so that the concern was, as they even opened up phase 1, is that there was going to be traffic issues. So moving up the project, the Caltrans project, was to help mitigate the traffic coming in.
Which is good, but if Caltrans pushes it back, which they're famous for, I'm asking, are they going to be able to occupy phase 2 prior to the light being done?
Good question.
Because their permit says they cannot.
Yeah, no, it's,
Can we get clarification?
so I'll get clarification on that. The good news was, from the traffic mitigation, was moving that.
Oh, that's great. If they come through, that helps
But
everyone.
the clarification on occupancy, that's a good question.
I have a question.
But it should have been a meeting there.
Yeah, we have,
Can't do it.
Jim, we have a question.
I have a
in the
question.
back.
Is there a contact at the Ventura County permitting office that we as the citizens can contact on verification on that? Is there a contact name?
I can't hear you. I think what you're asking is, I will clarify with,
No, what I'm asking, is there a contact name, phone number, and email with the county who
Sure.
authorized the permit for the Somis Ranch housing that the citizens of this community can contact for verification of that permitting specification?
sure, I get
That's
it.
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ultimately, it's planning director, Dave Ward.
Dave Ward?
Ultimately, it's planning director, Dave Ward. He has staff that helps him, but that's the individual at the county.
Okay, thank you.
And we have another question in the back.
Where actually is the light, traffic light going?
So the traffic light is the,
Ridge Road.
when it's the north, be the north,
Where those 2 monuments went in.
Oh, okay.
which is the north, the first exit, or the first entrance into the.
Really, really, really close to the current light.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're synchronized, that you don't have to
Yeah.
stop 2 minutes on this and 2 minutes on that.
Yeah, that's what.
I will ask on that. The good news is, the project is going in earlier to help mitigate traffic on that, so, we heard you on that, so that's the reason why Supervisor Rick was able to get Caltrans to move that up.
Is that like, the, you know, the synchronization and all that, because it is within the city, I mean, that entrance is the city of
Yeah.
Maria. Is that there?
No, it's not.
No, it's so.
It's all, yeah.
Oh, I thought the entrance to the desalination plant was Camarillo. No?
I'll ask on
So
synchronization.
it'll be,
Yeah.
Caltrans is,
I think the best thing is
Well, Caltrans has the light at Los Posos, Lewis, and
Camarillo's
Somis.
pretty good about synchronizing stuff. I don't know about Caltrans.
It's all highway, state highway 34.
Well, yeah, 34, that's Caltrans light there, like in Starbucks. That's not city Camarillo.
Supervisor Corral, I know you have a limited time available.
Actually, I'm gonna let him take on the next one. Yeah, no, it's talking that parcel.
So the letter?
Yeah.
That's number,
I'm sorry I'm late, I was at the State of the Schools in Conejo Valley. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAC. The one item I did want to talk about is, backing up a minute, I get a lot of calls to our office, Israel and I do, and the rest of my staff. We get calls about people angry about the farm worker housing going in that's down there, and I just drove by and it gets bigger every time I go by. I can understand if I lived here how frustrated I would be. We get calls often. In fact, one tonight, after about 6 p.m., no one was there, but they left a message, and we got a transcription. And that constituent was a Somis resident, and they were really mad. They were really mad at me. They were spitting mad at me for the farm worker housing that's going in down there, blaming me and my team for that. So I just want to share with you that we do spend a lot of time on the phone talking to people about the chronology that exists, that farm worker housing was not only approved, but was already being built when I was sworn in. It wasn't something that that I participated in any way approving. And I also know that the history of it is one where the community here didn't feel like they had any input. They didn't feel like they knew it was happening. They didn't know that it was coming. They didn't have a chance to talk about mitigations, and then boom, it was they were moving soil, and you know, sheet metal was going up, and the thing was built. It was fait accompli before I was ever elected, and being built well before I was ever sworn in. This is all entirely a predecessor of mine that was involved in this project, and different people too, at the county level in the planning department. Break. So I've learned just how important it is to know about these things well in advance, and to state very early the community doesn't support anything additional like this going in. There's been some concerns about other projects possibly coming to Somis. Similarly, under the SOAR initiative as a farm worker housing, etc. So to ensure that this doesn't happen again to this community, I wrote a letter that clearly stated, and it's in tonight's agenda, it's in the record, I'm happy to share it with you tonight if you'd like, that the letter was to the CEO of the county, who works for me and the other board members. It was to the director of the Resource Management Agency. It was to the planning director, Dave Ward, and his staff, and to the county council, our lawyer, directing that the moment that any piece of paper moves across the planning department's desk that has anything to do with Somis development, or particularly a farm worker housing anywhere in or around Somis, that the very first call that they make, the very first communications with me and my office, so we can agendize it and get it before this municipal advisory council and this community, so that this doesn't ever happen again where people are caught off guard. I made it fairly, I telegraphed as well as I could. I was very concerned about the way that this happened in the past, and I, as supervisor, was not going to allow anything like this to happen going forward in the future. The two things that I got in response were, one, we don't have anything like, well, first of all, they answered like they should. I'm a captain in the Navy, and they said, sir, yes, sir. And they said, we will immediately notify your office and you directly if any paper comes across the desk that is trying to take the property and move it to the next level of development, to pull a permit or to get the grading going. Anything that identifies movement in the direction of a new development in and around Somis. They said, yes, we will notify you. The second thing they said is that we currently can confirm that there is no other property where that is happening. There's no other movement, no other permits have been pulled, there's no other activity, no fees have been paid. Nobody is working to reach out and find out more information or gather information on the rules and laws around solar or farm worker housing that has been quiet for a decade-ish. So the letter is part of and I'm really hammering this home because I do want you to know that on my watch, I will not allow that kind of what transpired in the last number of years to happen again. We'll get it back, we'll agendize it, we'll get it before this community, and we can organize as best as we can to address these kind of things as a concern. So I hope that answers your questions to the MAC and to the community, because I hear you. I heard the message that was left on my voicemail machine tonight. Somebody spitting mad.
I have a question.
Yes.
On one of your last meetings, I think it was the last one, maybe the one previous, probably the last one, you stood up and you said the people voted for this. Now, I know I vote in every election. I don't vote for bonds or any of this stuff because I know how it works. So, you're standing there saying that you're going to stop this. You've said that the people voted this in the last meeting. So if that's the case, how are you going to stop this?
I didn't say stop.
Okay.
I never said stop.
What are your tactics for offsetting this?
Let me say something real quick.
Sure.
First of all, Supervisor Guerrero never said that. And you can't stop it. This started years ago, like years ago.
He's standing there saying he's going to.
No, what he's saying is that in the future, if something like this comes up, we're doing our best to get ahead of it early.
And that's what I'm asking, what are your points
All we
of
can,
operation to do that?
you correct me if I'm wrong, but all we can do is rely on the county to let us know if someone files for a zoning permit change,
Okay.
a building permit, stuff like that.
There's really nothing that can be done.
Nope.
Okay. that's
We're
all.
relying on a lot of government officials to let us know.
Okay.
What can?
Not every application is approved. There are ways to stop
Any
applications.
like with traffic issues that should have been addressed prior to this development being approved?
There
Like that?
are times when an application, even though it's authorized under SOAR, would not automatically be approved. Traffic is one of them.
Why
Resources
was
like
this automatically approved?
this predates me. I do not know.
I can tell you, this was automatically approved in Sacramento.
Okay, good.
This wasn't from the county.
Okay.
This was approved by the state, and there was a few people in the county that are no longer there, his predecessor being one, that was all in favor of it and helped the process go quicker. But this was, I don't know, you call it maybe.
I'm tired of people, representatives telling me they're gonna do something, when in fact it's not gonna be done. I'm tired of it. That's all I'm saying, just be real.
Well, I wish you would have been here when his
You
predecessor
don't have
was
the
here.
authority to do anything about it, be straight with us. That's all I'm saying. And we'll vote, I already vote accordingly. Okay? That's all I'm saying, don't BS us.
I think what the councilman was saying is, it's not going to be done so fast that we're not aware of. In other words, he's going to inform us that something is going on, and it's up to us to do something to stop it if we can.
If we
And that's the point. That's the point that Mr. Grell is raising, is that I'm gonna let you know so that this is going to happen, and you can, if you want, stop it or do something to stop it. Are we going to be able to stop it? I don't know. We tried to convince the county, and I say we as HOA of the grove, we wrote to the county and said, you're burdening our water system by putting this on us when this is supposed to be in Camarillo. put it on Camarillo's water, why do you want to put it on District 19? We couldn't do anything about it. They did, they
Well,
just refused.
I'm gonna say this and then I'll be quiet. All this, there is legal accountability. And anybody that gets hurt or killed because of this fiasco, with this traffic situation that has been caused by this development, will be held accountable. The developer, all the representatives, legally. There's legal accountability, and that's where we're at. So whoever approved this, permit-wise, Dave Ward, or whoever it is in Sacramento, the gentleman that was here at the last meeting on the developer, they will be held legally responsible for it, personally. That's all I'm saying. That's our only recourse.
One of the challenges is, as Tyler Cobb mentioned, that affordable housing is made streamlined by laws out of Sacramento.
So it is affordable housing, it's not farmhouse worker housing.
Well, it's farm worker housing that is a subcomponent of SOAR, which is
It's
it's
affordable
an
housing.
exception to SOAR, but it is being expedited because of laws out of Sacramento that incentivize additional lower income development. That's a state legislative thing. I understand, and what would typically happen is a developer would come in and they would file their interest to develop a property, and they would pay the fee, and the planning department wouldn't really reach out to us until later on, until things were really going and they needed to take it to the planning commission, and they would pre-brief us on something. By that time, there's too much time has gone by, so I didn't want that to happen. So I wrote a letter, it's in the record, the CEO recognized it, everyone else acknowledged it, that we're going to be notified first, not 7th or 10th, so that the community has an ability to have input and to talk about traffic and water, congestion and public safety and very high fire severity zones, all of the things that could have an impact ultimately on whether this thing goes forward or not.
Right, and that's the one that's done, that the one gentleman said it's done, why are we all talking about it? That's done. But there is legal recourse on that should anything happen. Anybody being hurt, anybody being killed by this traffic situation, and don't stop me up, I'm being dead serious on that. There will be legal recourse on that. And I just want that out there for the record.
There's a question.
Yes. I defer to the chair to take the questions. I don't want to hijack your meeting.
There's a question.
Okay, my specific question is that those apartment complexes really going to be used for migrant farm worker housing? I know hundreds of farm workers.
The developer of the building was here at the last MAC. They were here last MAC and they answered some of those questions. There is an ordinance that dictates what it means to be farm worker housing. Each individual unit has to have one occupant that is in farm worker or farm production, food production industry.
But most of the farm workers that work in Somis don't live in Somis. They live in the projects of Oxnard, Fillmore, and all over. And a lot of these field workers have said they've never been offered any type of
At this point, all we can do is hope that they do what they say they're gonna do, and if they don't, we can go through the right channels to hold them accountable. I don't know, you know, but then again, you're dealing with the state, because that's what they answer to, so.
I'm happy to participate, but if you want.
Go ahead. You have another question?
Jim?
I don't know, thank you for coming. I mean, it is really great that you come out here, but I don't know if this question is for you or but now, so there's an amount of houses that are being built. Is there a limit based on our square miles of land that we farm that would be also part of that? I found out from Israel this last month that when the SOAR initiative was created, the farm housing was created with it. My question is there a limit on the amount of, I mean, are we gonna take all the land and could it all be turned into housing?
It's only a proportion of a parcel. And if a parcel is too small, it couldn't have farm worker housing on it. But I don't know what the proportionality is, but I think it has to be a certain size before they would consider farm worker housing on it. And then the farm worker housing can't take up a too much of the agricultural use of the property. So I think it's, we can find the answer for
Yeah.
you, but I think it's say like 5% of a property can be used for.
My question is, so we have the Somis Valley here, and we have X amount of square miles of farmland.
Jim, no, they could build 4 more of those projects and house people that are working on a farm in Ventura. I mean, you can build them wherever you want to build them.
So it's unlimited.
Yeah.
There's no maximum capacity for our area.
Let me interject a point for just a second. There's a number of policies and rules and regulations pertaining to development of housing. There's the guidelines for orderly development. There's the SOAR initiative. There's the county general plan. All of those things are talked about by the county and reviewed against any development or proposed development for the project. In this particular case, guidelines for orderly development talk about urbanization should take place within cities, not within the county unincorporated area. That aspect was ignored by the decision makers. The SOAR initiative, the SOAR ordinance itself, does not specifically say farm worker housing is sanguiset. In other words, it's a given that farm worker housing is going to be put in place. If you read the language of the ordinance itself, it doesn't specifically say farm worker housing has a free ride. The organization that developed the SOAR initiative was mute with regards to this particular project. Not one word was said from that organization as to whether or not they disagreed or they agreed with it. Huge pressure from the state of California to develop what amount to low-income housing. The only way that you can basically confront those types of developments is to basically look at and educate yourself with regards to all of these rules, regulations, policies, documents, and everything else. Because beyond that, you're going to lose in the process because you don't have enough ammunition. You have not schooled yourself and educated yourself with regards to how these developments come about. AmCal, the same developer, the one down the street here, is developing a very similar project over by Ventura Avenue. It hasn't gotten off the ground yet, but it's still in the review process. So, as they do for one, I'm sure they're going to be doing for others. So, you've got to understand, unless people know what the language is of these different goals and policies, of these different county documents, you'll stand very little chance of arguing your point.
What was brought up at the last meeting is there was concern there was another parcel here and that there had been movement on that Jim, you just made reference to that. In your packets, as part of your agenda, we did, that was researched. As the supervisor mentioned, it's been over, it's in August of 2016, on the parcel that's of concern, there was a pre-application review, not even a pre-application. And that was filed by a previous owner. Since then, the property has been sold. That never went beyond a pre-application review. There's never been any authorization to move forward on that. So I know there's a lot of concern that something was happening right now. Now, the last time there was anything on that particular parcel was August 24th, 2016.
But to answer my question, the answer he gave me is that there is no limit right now.
No.
There isn't a limit.
No, and to what Pat said, Jim, he's totally right. I mean, the rules and regulations are changing like daily, and it's not so much the county in this regard, it's the state that's pushing this. It's not the county.
There are answers.
But no, it doesn't change the answer. It's unlimited. They could build 15 of these.
That's the worst case scenario. They could, the agriculture probably have to be large enough.
Yeah.
The marketability of this would have to be, the market would have to sustain this, meaning a developer would have to come in and say, yeah, it's worth plumbing it and putting electricity in, and then still being confined to only putting farm workers in there when there's a big farm worker house down there. So the market was probably putting restrictions on anyone else's interest in coming in here and doing that. And then lastly, even with a ministerial permit, where it's your right to put in now, like say an ADU in your backyard, that's a ministerial permit that doesn't go through the level of public scrutiny that it used to, like you're building a new house. An ADU now is similar to this. It's an expedited permit that's protected under state law, similar to farm worker housing, as we just described. However, even an ADU is limited under some circumstances. Not everyone can put one in their backyard. Your backyard has to be large enough. It will go through a scrutiny at the planning department, whether there's water to support it, and whether it's pumped electrically correctly, and it will go through a prima facie environmental review of whether to issue it. And if it does meet all those criteria, they will issue a ministerial permit. But not everyone can have an ADU in their backyard, just like not every farm worker property out there would qualify for the exemption of farm worker housing. I hope that helps.
Yeah, but
Have another question?
Yeah, I just, if there's no limit on the farm worker's property, like in this case, this specific case, more land was used for the farm worker housing than the land that's left. So how in the world could we think that that's okay? That more of the building is there than what's left of the farm?
Well, because that particular ranch, the state thought, and this person knew the loopholes, going back to what Pat said, and they used that parcel to put up enough houses for lots of farm workers to be able to
And
occupy.
that's the first time that any farm worker housing anywhere has been like that. Any state.
There's some other
Anything
projects,
I've read, there is nothing like that.
well, there's some other projects that house 200 or 300 in Oxnard.
There's currently a project that's about this far along in
being built at the
Ventura.
same time?
Right now in Ventura, they're developing a project, a farm worker housing on a SOAR property, and it gets the same, it has received the same feedback from the community.
I mean, because this is like a new phenomenon, and if we just keep letting it happen.
I mean, it's not, I mean, there's several hotels in the county that have been bought and turned into farm worker housing in the last
So
10
I have
years.
to research that, because what I
Yeah.
read, that this was the largest and the biggest and the kind of the first time that anything of this magnitude has.
There's been others.
I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
maybe not as nice as this.
Maybe not as big as.
Yeah.
Ventura's similar, but not as big. Those are the two big things happening right now in Ventura County.
And then the other thing that I wanted to point out, going back to what the supervisor said earlier, is that even if something does come to the county level, like this again, here, is that, this letter is helpful, but we also have to remember there's 5 supervisors, and, 3 take it. So if something like this comes and we put up a fight, it doesn't mean that we're gonna ultimately win, right? So we also have to remember that, unfortunately, it matters what all 5 supervisors think,
And I think it matters how loud a community is. So if it happens again, I hope you all are out there with signs, like I will be, and letters and everything, and maybe we might get something done.
That's right.
Because we can't put up with it in Somis. We're not gonna put up with it in Somis. No.
That's right.
Chair Richards, I think
Not
there was one more question in the
Yeah,
back.
give us one more.
I have a question. I understand how the source was done. Some of us grew up out here, and I understand that the migrant housing. So you're telling me every place over here, one person in those apartments has to be working in the farm industry? In
Yes.
every apartment over the house in here? Because
SOAR's about locking in agricultural property for agricultural use and not rezoned unless there's a vote of the people. There were some exceptions to the property being used strictly for agricultural use. Some of the exceptions include husbandry or food processing or renewable energy, solar farms, and farm worker housing. I don't think I don't know. It was written by Richard Francis and Linda Parks, my predecessor. The SOAR, I don't know that they knew or envisioned that there would be this run on farm worker housing or an interest in doing it beyond where you see it now. I'd be interested to know. I mean, I'd be curious if there's any demand signal for more farm worker housing to be built. I think a lot of the farm workers that are here in Ventura County are transient. They come through on cycles to support different crops, and then they move to other parts of the state or back down to Mexico. It'll be interesting to see if they fill this up or not, and whether it pencils out. I don't know. This all predates me. All I can do is kind of go forward, make sure that you know everything that you can about whatever might be proposed in the future. Thank you. I'll sit down.
Just as a clarification, the crack guy last night said that it was not available for seasonal workers. They had to be.
Did he? I
Yeah.
don't remember. Did you say that?
Yeah, and they have to be here 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, well, that makes sense to me, but it makes sense to me, but I'm curious to not enforce that or reinforce that. But also, my issue wasn't about that as much as it was if it is only available to seasonal workers, and if seasonal workers do return to Mexico or go to San Luis Obispo or other places, then how are they going to sell or not? How are they going to lease out all of those apartments? And will it pencil out for them, or will it implode? I don't know.
I have a question, and that is, this board really didn't find out about it until it was made a complaint. And we were blindsided by your predecessor, basically, in not highlighting that to us sooner, so that we could form a committee, or so that we could notify the community about what was going on. Do we have any insight? Is there a liaison between the county and the state that might be able to give us a heads up in terms of what the state is doing and along those lines?
Well, the approving authority still is the county. There are state laws that create influences upon the approving authority, the county planning director. But it still goes through planning first. That's where everything starts. And that's where we're going to see the first evidence of interest. And that's where I've put up flags to trigger notification to my office, and then I will notify the MAC and the community, and that's when we get organized. I think we've created a trigger mechanism to notify the community at the earliest phase that makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
Unfortunately, when this project came before us, we had no knowledge because it was not within our area of interest. In other words, there was a boundary that separated that area out. So therefore, all of the notifications that normally would be given were not. And we didn't receive information with regards to it.
He's the executive director of SOAR.
So I think that this community should be writing letters to Miss Linda Parks, since she threw this community under the bus.
She's no longer in government, but
It doesn't matter.
she still works for
Linda
SOAR.
Parks needs to hear from the community, we need to thank her for giving us such an injustice since we have SOAR in place.
I don't know the history. I don't know whether her office was told at a very late stage about the application and the development. I don't know if she knew early on. I honestly, it's just conjecture for me, what the history was, because I wasn't privy to it. But I know how this community feels, and I will let you know the day the paperwork is filed, the day. Yes.
If we have
When you
time.
say the day that it's filed, are they gonna let you know the day it's filed and let them say, guess what, we said yes?
Oh, no.
No.
There's just it's a long process. It starts with an
You have the power
application.
to say, no, you can't do it.
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I think the supervisor's office, teamed up with the community, can have some influence. I don't know what Linda Parks' official position was on the Somis farmhouse. I don't know. I never heard. But I suspect that the position of the supervisor teamed up with the community could make a big difference the second time around, especially when you already have one in the community.
I think we have time for one more question.
Diane?
Yeah, Peter, there has to be one farm worker in each apartment. If they do not have enough qualified people as farm workers, can they automatically just abandon that, or would they have to get some kind of a?
We were told no by
Yeah, but how, we were told no, that,
their current guidelines are it's farm worker housing or no occupancy.
I know the current guidelines, that's what they are, and I looked at the application, and how they had to prove it. But if they can't fill it, do they have to get approval from somebody to not do that anymore?
The Board of Supervisors doesn't have authority over SOAR. It was delivered by voters. This exclusion exists within SOAR, and the failure to abide by SOAR and create a Taj Mahal apartment complex and then change your mind and no longer put farm workers in there, it's not up to us. It would violate the law, and it would make for a very interesting lawsuit against the developer and the property owner if they did anything outside of the four corners of SOAR initiative, which is farm worker housing.
And also, they stated that their funding was also tied to the initiative of farm worker housing.
So we would have to be very attentive to try and find out and kind of follow whether or not they're full or if they're doing something different, so that we could do that law.
And they'll have to validate the people that live there, and that validation will be scrutinized, and I'm hoping to have access to that information so we can all study that together.
Please try hard to have access.
I hear
We
you're
would have
having
difficulty.
you're having a hard time filling them, I hear.
We may be able to answer some of the questions. I know your time is limited.
My time is limited only on getting here, but I can stick around for this topic for sure.
And the next one, too.
Last question. Tyler, what do you got?
What agency is responsible for auditing and regulating who's in those?
State.
The state.
That's what animal health told us.
I might mention that the planning division is the one that receives the documentation with regards to farm worker and whether or not they are a legitimate farm worker.
Who receives that?
Planning division.
All right.
No, the state does.
No, the state only does it for the purposes of the bond.
We can, Israel and I will find out the answer and share that with Mac, and then Mac can.
I can share something.
Yeah, Patty.
So, as you guys, most of you guys know, I work for an big ag company, and so they've actually been turning people away, so some of our employees that applied haven't gone in on this first round. They were told that they could be reconsidered for the second round. they're just being very, very slow with their application process. So that's the number one complaint we have heard from our employees. And then the other thing is, just remember that the definition of farm worker is very broad. So even administrative staff that works for an agriculture company could qualify as an ag worker. So, you know, keep that in mind. I know that a lot of people are interested in that housing. I can give you guys updates on as to what we see. There are, but some of them are actually on the higher end, where salaried people could even qualify for the housing.
And then also, you've been going through the process from your end on when they're verifying the employment, correct?
Yes, they are. So from what we have seen, it's they're choosing employees that have been with us for a long time, or that can show that they worked for ag for a while. I think the requirement is anywhere from 8 to 10 months out of the year they need to be working in ag, and it'll be interesting to see next year what kind of, you know, the verification of employment they send us, and I can keep you guys informed if that gives everyone a peace of mind as to the process.
Okay. We have, moving on to agenda item 17, regarding the legislative subcommittee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have Supervisor Burrell here, so there's two sides to this. One, Supervisor introduced the legislative committees for MAX. The role really, the original mandate for MAX was to flow two ways. One is like this meeting tonight, where there's input that's received from the community that goes to the council. The council then advises the supervisor. The other way is there are items that flow down from the Board of Supervisors that could have an impact on a community. And then I'll turn that over to Supervisor Burrell to explain that side of it. And then also this week we had training on two of your MAC members, your chair, and then also your let's see, who else? Vice Chair. Went through that, and they can talk about their experience with the training. But
Every other Tuesday, we spend our board days, we vote from 8:30 in the morning, usually to about 5 o'clock at night. We're there voting. A number of those issues are very specific to different communities. If they're laser-like specific to Somis, I'm sure you've heard about them, and we talked about them, and I have feedback. Some of them are broader, but do impact Somis, nevertheless, including the entire county. And there have been times where I've asked, you know, where's the community on this particular issue, and we didn't really have good feedback. So this is an opportunity to create a feedback loop specifically on the items that are coming up for me to vote on every other Tuesday. You can take a look. I think there'll be a number of Tuesdays where you look and you say none of these things are consequential. You know, adopting a homelessness strategy, hiring 15 new deputy sheriffs to do, you know, homelessness engagement. Those are some things you may support, you may not. You may want to take a position on, you may not. But the legislative committee allows you to get a copy in advance of our legislative agenda, and then give feedback directly to me on your thoughts as it would impact Somis. Did I get that right?
These agendas available online?
These are always available online, usually about a week before. The final agenda, though, is locked in 72 hours before and can't be changed. And then Tuesday, I go in and I vote.
so the way the legislative committee will work, you have two members that were voted on. You have the chair, who's automatically one of them. And in this case, we have the vice chair as well. And let's see, a Thursday prior to Tuesday's meeting, the final agenda goes out. But prior to that, there's a draft agenda that goes out generally Tuesday. So Tuesday prior to the next week's Board of Supervisors meeting, they'll get a draft agenda, and they'll be going through that and looking for different items that they feel maybe may have interest for this area for Somis. And then on the final agenda, you'll really have a chance to see what are those items and also the documents that go with that. And then they will have a phone call with me on Monday, the following Monday morning. So the Monday before the Board of Supervisors meeting, as a community field rep, I have a phone call with them in the morning, and then we'll talk about some of those items. In the afternoon, they have an opportunity to speak directly with Supervisor Burrell and go through those items as well, so that he hears directly on these issues. We just went through some training, if you guys want to maybe talk about the training you went through.
A lot of information. It's pretty intense, so, well, here it comes.
Well, the only thing I see as a problem is it kind of creates a minefield for me. Because if he and I, we can talk something over, but I can't call Patty and see how she feels on it. Tyler or Jack, because that would be a violation of the Brown Act. And so I don't like the fact that the two of us are making decisions, or five of us, and they really don't have any input, because we can't talk to them because of the Brown Act. That, to me, that creates a minefield for like, well, you can call in Jack and say, hey, how's your wine company? That stuff. As soon as you start talking about something to do with the agenda, then, you gotta be real careful about how you word things and how you say things, or it's a violation of the Brown Act. And to me, it's kind of like a minefield.
It's an imperfect science, but if it's a general issue and you feel comfortable that the board would feel the same way, you can kind of share your thoughts on it. If you're not sure, you might share that too. You might say, hey, Patricia might feel very differently about this because, she's running a family business. And,
But I couldn't ask her if she's feeling that way because.
I don't think you could. I think the Brown Act does apply to the committee.
Yeah.
These are items that are on the agenda. But there's still a discussion element that can go. The way Mark was explaining, there's a certain discussion element to a certain point. Where, how do you stand on this, or how would you?
I like the idea of the whole thing, but it puts us in a position of,
I navigate this every day by picking one of my supervisors that I call and team up with on something because I can't call two or three or four. So we try to navigate it as well, Brown Act.
There can be a general discussion on an item, from what I understand, without going into, where do you stand?
well, because I know when I was working in the hardware store, Mark Smith would come in, who was on the school board. He and I would be talking, and then Jim Shaw would pull up and he'd want to come in. He'd look and say, oh, you guys are in there, I'm not going in there. And he'd stand outside and wait till Mark walked out, and then he would walk in. And it was all about business. It wasn't anything about the school board. I need some bolts, I need some plows, that type of thing.
Well, we give it a shot, and if we find that it's too prickly, then we can abandon the idea, but I vote on some substantive things, and with a match just don't meet enough
Right.
To get the agenda before the MAC, before I vote. And that substance is money, policy, and important things, so let's give it a shot, and if it doesn't feel right, then we'll.
For me, the biggest takeaway is the fact that we now have the mechanisms to find out about items early in the process, not wait until all of a sudden they're, boots on the ground kind of circumstance. So I think it's a good-do for the supervisor. His interest is to try to get this information to us ASAP and find out whether or not there's some bruised item that's in there that he needs to understand what is happening in the community or what the community's interest is.
I understand what he's trying to do, but with Brown Act and all that stuff, it's kind of tough. We're just Pat and I to make a decision for three other people and not being able to contact them. I mean, if we were meeting here, we could talk back and forth all we want. But to see him out in the public or call him on the phone to say everything, we can't do that.
So you'd have to hold a special meeting or something?
Yeah, if it was something major, yeah.
Does it have to be here?
That's fair.
One of your house?
But then now you can't do it.
You can't do that.
There's gotta be a building permit.
I still think it should at least have two people's opinion, rather than,
Give it a try, what do you think?
Yeah, try.
yeah.
Lots of.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have another question. Yes?
One thing, I understand that the ones that are built, there's
Excuse
nothing
me,
to
could
be
you
done.
stand up? I have a hard time hearing you.
I
Thank you.
understand, the ones that are built, that they've already found where to Camarillo, and Camarillo said they would take the kids for school. But if they build over here, Somis School doesn't have a lot of spaces to take on more kids. And, you know, we're unincorporated. Will this be in a study? Because we don't have the fire department, we don't have the police, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the school. Who does that study?
What are you referring to over here?
If they start to try to develop and go forward.
Is there something in the works on that?
Purchase.
Hold on,
Okay.
because we're just getting, like,
Yeah.
we're going around in a circle.
No, I'm not.
There's nothing currently,
No, I know there's nothing currently, but the same company purchased land. That's where my concern, and I know it's 5 years, 6 years.
it's
but
not the
can-
same company, it's the same person that owned the land who sold it to AmCal. And he owns lots of land here in Solis. Lots,
How is-
lots.
But that's the beginning. Can we
It
do?
totally is, but I think, we
But
could
can
talk
we
about
do
this for the next 5
something?
years until
Yes,
they
but-
make a move to do something.
But at that point, if we, you know, we got too behind the curve on this one. If we can get ahead of the curve and watch for permits, watch for these things, because they did
I think
independence.
we're way further ahead of the curve than we were the last time.
Well, maybe we need to stay way ahead of the curve.
I love it. There's more people,
You know, some
almost.
of us grew up out here and moved here for this reason. It's
I agree with
normal.
that.
No, but listen, it's normal, Somis will develop. It
Yeah,
is
but
normal.
we need agricultural land to grow things.
And we need
And
to
grow
protect.
crops, not to house people. And however that gets protected, maybe it's amending the SOAR,
Exactly.
something. But we have to protect our crop growing land.
I agree, and I hope you both come to all the meetings for the next
I
10
will
years.
be,
and-
believe me.
Some of us came back home and will protect Somis. Just know that.
Okay, but
Okay,
we still have a,
I think we have one more item on our agenda, and that's
I moved here from LA.
creating a vision statement for the future of Somis.
Well, there can be a better setup.
Yeah.
Okay, part of the supervisor's vision for, when we came into this is we had noticed, and he had noticed that often things are very reactionary. And so to try to get ahead of that, and you're seeing this in bits and pieces, you're seeing with the setting up the legislative committee, you're seeing it with the letter that he sent out. So the idea of where we have been in the planning process, if you came to some of the other meetings, we started off with what we're calling a 3 to 5 year plan. Also in the rewrite of right now we're going through a rewrite of the procedures for maps. One of the things that the state had established was that there should be an annual plan at minimum. And so what they call a work plan. So as this process started, for you guys to get ahead of the curve so that you are not having to be reactive and be impacted by this, the planning process started. So we started with the very first step. It was called a SWOT analysis. Was anyone here for that? Okay. So a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Part of what the council's role is to provide, their whole role really is set up from the state as an advisory committee. Well, without having input from you, particularly in a planning process, then it becomes, as we said, it's just in the moment. We're trying to get away from that. So the SWOT analysis was the very first thing you did in the planning process. Some of that came out of that, where your strengths was strong ties and community. We're seeing this here, right? That's why you're here tonight. You are a closely tied community. That's one of your strengths. What also came out was your history. Somis is one of the earliest developments in Ventura County. In fact, we were talking about this yesterday, but Bob, your grandmother was born in Somis, correct? But at that time, it was Santa Barbara County. So there are deep roots that are here. And you want to also, one of your others was that you're a rural community. And so these are all things that we talk about. One of your weaknesses was, coming up, was reactionary. We're dealing with that tonight. Okay? So another weakness was traffic. You have one way in, you have one way out, right? So you're ingress and egress. If something happens in case of emergency, we talked about water, we talked about a number of things. Your opportunities now, so SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, your opportunities is to try to get ahead of this, to protect what you have, okay? And so the threats The T in this is their threats. Well, obviously, we have been talking about that quite a bit. We're glad to report tonight that I think a lot of the concerns was there was already another development in the process. That's not true. But here's your chance as part of the planning process. When I originally started talking, I met with Chair Richards and we started talking about an area plan. And so what came out of this was the concept of like other communities have area plans. But the 3 to 5 year plan can encompass even more. So you have issues of crime. You have issues of traffic, you have issues of schools, you have issues of, so all of these things can be bucketed as part of the plan. The very next step is creating, if you create a business plan, is creating your vision statement. Now, why is a vision statement so important? A whole plan is guided into a certain direction, okay? And the better that you are aligned with the vision, the better your business planning process is going to be. The next step is your mission statement. So now what's the difference? And if you have some of these documents, how many of you are able to pull it up on your? So if you guys could share and pass these out, I think I have 15 of these, but you also have it on your phone as part of the agenda. If you could help me pass these out, Joe, really. If you guys can split them up, one per family, and we have some others here. So your vision statement is your far-reaching statement. It's where do you see yourself in the future? It's kind of it's not as direct as your mission statement. Your mission statement is how we're going to fulfill our vision statement. So what we're going to talk about tonight is what's the vision for Somis. The goal is, yes, your MAC council can develop that statement, but they have said we really would like to have input, and they've always said we want more and more people here and involved in the planning process. So what you have right now is a document that talks about the vision statement. And it gives an example. I'll give you an example of one of them. The vision statement for Habit for Humanity is a world where everyone has access to, one of my eyes on this, you guys see that I gave away my larger copy, has access to decent housing. So it's very simple. Your vision statement should not be too long. The longer it gets, the more complicated and the harder it is to follow. So the opportunity you guys get tonight in starting this whole process is to clarify and to identify what is your vision that you have as for your community. Then the mission statement comes in, and then we have the various categories. What we're looking at, the way the state set it up, the MACs really are to advise on areas of public safety, public health, planning, and then land use kind of comes into that. And what was the other one?
Growth.
What was it?
Growth?
No, part of that is growth, but it's public safety, public health, planning. I don't remember the other one. Yeah, it's in there. Those are the categories. So we're not there yet. Okay, now let's take safety. Public safety can be a lot of different things. It can encompass crime, but it also encompass road hazards, right? So it can cover things like fire. You're in a high-risk fire. So all of these things come under safety. Then why is this so important? We are talking about right now establishing the plan so that when you have to go to battle on something, right, you've already made a statement as a community through your MAC to the supervisor on these areas that we've talked about, okay? So I encourage you on this tonight just to take a few minutes together to break it up. There's a vision statement worksheet as the last sheet. And so if you read through, it'll kind of guide you. But just start putting the words. The thing is, just to think about in terms of the future of Somis is. That's one of the best ways to start out. I see the future of Somis as, you know. So just, and that's what the worksheet will tell you. So if you can take a few minutes as neighbors and as families together, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come back in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We're going to ask you to stand and give some of those statements of what you see. Now, out of that process, I will collect those, and we will begin to work with your MAC to develop that vision statement. So does that make sense? So we're going to take 5 to 10 minutes right now, depending on how long it takes you guys. to start writing some things down. I'm going to ask you to stand up to then share those, and then together I will collect those from you, and we will start developing. So at the next meeting, we can hone it down to 1 or 2 statements, and then you guys can, have your input on that. Does that make sense? Okay. Does everyone have pens? We're going to have to share pens too. Okay.
What's that? And you know what? We might decide that tonight, but let's put these out of it tonight and see. You guys good? Okay. You guys good? Makes sense? Love it. Okay, you guys got a pen?
I know you're saying,
You guys are good? You guys have your... Okay, you guys have your receipt? All right. Are you guys taking off? Yes, let me give you my
Whoever owns the portion, the driveway, the cafeteria, could you move it so the other car can get out?
Fill mine out.
agriculture, 4 generations.
So, yeah, so I kind of
Excuse me, whoever owns the Porsche that's parked in the driveway right here of the cafeteria, could you please move it so the person in front of you can get out and go home?
I don't know who has the Porsche. I have. Does anyone have a Porsche?
Yeah, I think the owner is.
Oh, she did, okay. Okay, you guys, just keep in mind, 19% of the revenue in Ventura County comes from farming. Okay?
Wow.
What role does Somis play? So protecting Ventura County is protecting Somis. Also, you have 4 generations, 3 generations of families, right? So families should be part of anything that you're a safe place for children. So think about individuals.
I will.
All of this is about you guys. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. You guys good? Okay. All right.
And that's how you want to do it.
Okay, if I can have your attention, you guys. Everybody? Okay, if everyone can also move forward so we have a better chance, I'm going to hand the microphone to you guys. Okay. All right, everyone, come forward with your ideas. We can sit up front. First of all, I want to thank you guys. number of you. Again, this is about creating one community, one large voice, not just individual voices. So I'm going to start off. Who wants to start and share what they have for their vision statement? Okay, ready?
There you go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, our things that we came up with were protect farming, keep traffic under control, keep development at bay, have embrace community organization and observation, keeping, well, that came up out of the homelessness, but I don't really think we have a homeless problem here, but we could, so. Keep community close-knit and family-oriented, and no additional food, hotels, grocery, those type of developments, or those type of businesses. We already have, I mean, what we were just talking about, the general store can't make coffee because they're we don't have sewer. So, that type of thing. No, basically, we don't have sewer, so we can't have any of that kind of stuff.
Excellent. You got, pass it to the next. See how often you see these things come up. Jean.
Hi, Jean. I'm sorry, I didn't write anything down, but as far as I'm concerned, it's about development of the community and keeping this small town, countrified feel to our town alive and not making it an annex to any larger town. Then just keeping, that's all I have. That's all I have.
That's good.
Very good.
All right, next.
The vision of Somis is to preserve the rural community, maintaining a safe environment that continues to support the love of nature, agriculture, and the sense of community.
Wow.
I'm on your team.
Yeah.
Anybody else have one?
Yeah, keep going. That's it.
Somis exists as a self-governing agricultural community dedicated to preserving its land and water for growing crops and maintaining horses.
Wow.
I'm third generation farming. I just put to focus on agriculture so we don't go the way of LA and Orange County.
Anyone else out here? Oh, in the back. We got it. Yeah.
That's okay, I think I have a loud enough voice. I just reiterating, I think the importance of agriculture, of protecting our land where we grow food is the first and foremost priority, and not allowing development or shoehorning of any affordable housing or any more development on our agricultural land, period.
Thank you. Okay.
He should say something.
Yeah, we're working on this side.
I wish we had more police presence in
Okay.
Somis.
So safety.
Yeah.
More police presence.
I wish they clean out those slums behind the Rose place, those old pot, or where they were growing that hemp years ago.
So what you just said, so let me show you how this works. What he just talked about, and what number you've been talking about was, I wish we had more police. Now that's a very specific tactic, but it flows down from Somis being a safe community. So the next thing we're going to work on are those very tactics. What does it take to have a safe community? As we start to define those things, you guys will start digging up those things as well. It's going to come down to, it's going to be traffic, it's going to be fire, it's going to be more police. How long does it take for an ambulance to come out here right now?
15 minutes. There was a fatality next to my residence. A motorcycle got hit by a pickup truck. We called, several people called. It was 15 minutes before the highway patrol and the EMT arrived. The guy died 5 minutes after they arrived.
So one of the things that is the coverage that we're looking at right now with RMR, their contract is also coming up. One of the things you may want to be putting in your business plan as you start to take it down and you are peeling that onion is what is our response time for first responders here, right? Because I heard that mentioned even earlier. Someone said 2 hours or something. So here. Now here.
But my question is, we're unincorporated, so, you know, we don't have the same rights as the city. And I know we're not gonna become incorporated because it's too difficult. So a lot of these things that we cannot, we can have a vision and down the road have more police presence, have these capabilities. But at the same time, we have to develop but not have more problems. I don't know how to say that with, how do you have a police presence when you're unincorporated and they have to come from other cities?
Okay, in some ways, if I can answer that for you. So statute, government code, state code statute 31010 was established in 1971 for the establishment of maps for unincorporated areas. Because they realized that the unincorporated areas were underserved as compared to incorporated areas. In this situation, your county supervisor acts in many ways as your mayor. So the reason why we have these MAC meetings is, let's say we didn't have them, right? Let's say Linda had not set this up, but let's say supervisor didn't continue that. You would be unrepresented. That would be absolutely true. The reason why these meetings and why your participation and more of you coming out is because you do have someone that will fight for you. And I will tell you this, maybe you're starting to learn this, but he is a fighter, and he will continue to represent you in the way I believe that you want. You may be getting used to him, but what you're going to see is he's not going to ignore you. And so, 1971, Government Code 31010 was set up for you guys, so that you would be represented in the unincorporated areas.
Yeah, there is some things that we don't have because we're unincorporated, but it's almost a little bit of that is the price to pay.
Right.
We want to remain unincorporated.
Yeah. But you don't want to have not representation, right?
Well, of course, you know, well, we do have the sheriff's department, and we have the CHC that do represent our area. Yeah, they were aware. But, you know, yeah, I guess that's what he would.
So, under the county is the budget for both fire and sheriff. Now, you have an elected sheriff, but at the same time, there's a working cooperation always. Supervisor Girl has a great relationship with both Chief Garner and also with Chief Ryan, or Sheriff Ryan. So in this case, you do have representation. It's up to you guys, though. He's not going to know. He's not what is on, and he's hearing this all the time. But as we start to put this down in a document, then it's going to be. I'm going to turn over to your Mac now so they can share with what they have for their vision statements.
What I've written down is much, and I thought you all were pretty succinct and came up with some great ideas. Maintain rural community and foster agriculture, as most of you have already said. Ability to live within infrastructure limits, meaning within the roadways we have, within the water system that we have, within the school systems that we have, and a safe environment for our children and the future generations. So that's just kind of my idea there.
I've got retain Somis as a rural small town, okay? Retain Somis as a safe community, permitted only where infrastructure exists to support the development.
Good wording. I got to keep agriculture vibrant in the Las Posas Valley and keeping the community vibe that it already has.
I don't have much to add. I have pretty similar things, you know, protecting agriculture and keeping our community small.
I agree with most of what everybody said. I just think we just got to work to get it very clear. Bullet points, right? Not too lengthy, but I agree. I think we need to work on it and get it done. That's it.
Ezra, we're going to be reviewing this
likely I'm gonna put it into, a document form that we can also, I'll include on the agenda packet for next time. But the process, as we go on to the mission statement, which is the next step, and then after that, you really kind of get into the meat of things. That's where it becomes, I think, you really can talk about things at a level of, hey, here's an idea, what about this? And that tactical part, where you get to the actions, the tactics, become very, very more clear. And I think it also becomes, you then now can stand up with one voice and say, no, here's what we see in safety. Here's what we see in public health. Here's what we see. And that way, everyone has that unified vision. When that document goes to the supervisor, that's filed. So we will file it also. The legislative committee is going to provide a very important aspect of this. There are a lot of things that come through that. For instance, grants. There is grant money available. There's beautification projects. There's things that where the county is going after something, maybe they'll see something and say, hey, why don't we have that for Somis? So cellular, we've talked about that. So we're working with some of the cellular companies, I know north of the 118. So those are the kind of things that we're gonna have to come, and they'll all come into a plan. So if you guys can, if you can hand these to me, I'll put them in a document. If you can leave me your phone number in case it might be difficult to read or something, then I will also contact you. I hope, has this been helpful to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Are we heading in the right direction?
Yes.
Okay, okay. I want to thank you guys for not only the phone calls I get and a lot of support. I get a lot of emails from you guys, and it does help. I know this is not an easy process, but we're together in this, okay?
I might mention that there's a lot of information on the county planning division's website. You can review all 10 of the existing area plans and get a flavor for what area plans are all about.
It's broader.
You said 3 to 5
Yeah.
plan is broader than the area plan.
An area plan, if that's the decision that you guys as a group decide to go, there's pros and cons to that, by the way. You can include that as part of your overall plan. So what this is it encompasses more than just what an area plan would encompass, like things like safety and public health. Yes?
I know this is a dumb question, but exactly who are, you work who?
Okay, so my name's Israel. My last name's Rodriguez. Try to figure that out. My middle name's Ezekiel,
I just
so
asked.
that'll even throw you off.
And you're Israel?
Let me see if I have any money in my pocket. I do. If anyone can guess what Israel and Ezekiel means, there's $20 I have in that money. So I am a community field representative for Supervisor Grow. Part of what my role is I handle constituent calls. You guys, I've talked to you a number of times. So I get the emails, I get the phone calls. I then connect it with, let's say there's something that has to be done on a road, then I will then contact Public Works. If there's an issue on, it can be anything, crime, then I'm contacting, the sheriff. So I'm the point person for the supervisor in regards to community stuff. I also am working on legislative issues along with our chief of staff in working on developing the legislative committees as well as our new policy manuals that will be coming out for the MAX. We are creating committees and subcommittees. So we're in the process, this planning part right now will probably move to a subcommittee at some point. There's just only so many items you can handle on a given agenda. And then if you meet only every other month, it's going to take a long time to get that plan out. So there's probably going to be a move to have subcommittees develop around this. There might be a subcommittee to handle something else, maybe agricultural issues or things like that. But your council right here, you have a great council. I tell you, you have a really good, they've been here a long time. They understand your community and they care. And so it's helpful when more and more you come out for all of us. And so my job is to help continue to bring more people out. We're trying to use the signs. In fact, don't forget your signs, guys. To let people know when there's meetings. We now have a draft agenda that goes out 14 days to give you more notice of when the meeting's going to occur. So that was something we implemented. We're live streaming. That's Andrew over there. Say hi, Andrew. And by the way, congratulations, Drew. He's now president of the student body for...
Not yet, not yet.
Well, he's the only candidate. No. Anyway, I'm giving him a bad time. But we're in the process, the live streaming, our website, our newsletter, these meetings are a way of getting more involvement and participation and awareness. That's our goal. Make you more aware of things that are happening and get you to participate more. And the end result, I believe Somis at the end of the day is to remain Somis.
And if you could spread the word as to what we're trying to accomplish, I'd really appreciate it.
I came up with something tonight. Protecting Ventura County means protecting Somis. 19% of the revenue for Ventura County is agriculture. How important is Somis and what's the other, Las Posas? Valley. To that. And what happens in regards to, I'm going to say something, a predecessor, which without saying names, I'm being live streamed, came from an area that was, she had lived in Thousand Oaks. So your predecessor came, supervisor's predecessor came from Thousand Oaks. In Thousand Oaks, how much farming do you have? Okay? Her understanding was what she applied to Thousand Oaks, which was the hills, she wanted open space. Well, when she came and she became supervisor, she applied that to the rest of the area, assuming that what you have here in terms of agriculture is the same in Thousand Oaks. It's not. And so why we're going through this process is to help you guys. So let's say, I'm sure Supervisor Grau, I'm not sure, I imagine he's going to run again. But even beyond that, this community has been here how long? The reason why you want a vision statement, don't you want it to remain the same beyond even Supervisor Grau and beyond all that? It's really about you, and it is up to you. Now, you're also going to have a chance in voting on your next supervisor, and I'm not trying to sway you. What I'm saying is hopefully together, you'll see the direction as a team, the support staff, of what we're here to help you guys with, and your MAC council. Having said that, I will try to find out other stuff, because you guys always throw, I will find out in the water. The Somis fence.
And at this point,
Don't worry